All right, so I am excited to bring to you guys my good friend, former NFL pro, Super Bowl champion, all around great guy, Kawika Mitchell. Man, Kawika, thanks for joining the show, bro.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be on here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we were talking off air about the simple facts that and I was only at Lake Howell 2 years. We went to school together for 2 years. I was on the basketball team. He was on the football team. You were super cool, man. You were one of the chillest dudes in the school, but we weren't necessarily like best of friends. You know what I mean? But we've been acquaintances for 20 plus years, man. I've been following your career. Super proud of you, man. And when I reached out to you, I just said, "Hey, Kawika, would you join the show?" And you right away you said yes. Going back to Lake Howell. So shout out to all of our Silverhawks, man. We're gonna start right there. Let's go back to 1996, 97, 98. Borrowing the school over at what was that, Winter Springs?
Yeah,
And playing high school football, man. And talk to me about Trevor Price and looking up to that. Let's talk Lake Howell football and your path from there to University of South Florida.
wow. And I grew up Lake Howell football. Both my brothers played at Lake Howell. All six of the kids in my family at some point went to Lake Howell. So the history was always there. My brother, who's 5 years older than me, I remember going to the football games. I was always playing behind the bleachers, playing football. I never watched any games, but it was just, it was just about, that's just what was going to happen. I was going to go to Lake Howell, I was going to play football, and I was going to carry on the tradition. And there's guys like Kenny Times, who before me was one of the better linebackers. But really, I was a running back. So like Marquette Smith and some of those guys were like the guys that I looked up to. And they were the guys that that I wanted to, I just wanted to be as good as them, and Marquette was a far reach, but that's definitely the level I was striving for. Yeah, it was a family tradition. It was a local tradition growing up basically in Castleberry, Florida. Lake House right there around the corner. So it was something I always looked forward to. And, once I had the chance with Coach Mike Michelia and the history that he had with school and stuff like that, and Coach Michael, not Michael, but Robert Irvin, and his history as well. So it was just, for me, it was a lot of fun and something I look forward to.
So I heard you. As I was sort of researching to do a good podcast here, I watched an interview that you did with Legends of Lake Howell. They posted that on YouTube, and I learned something about you I didn't know. So you said that your freshman year, you were they put you out of Lake Howell,
Yeah.
and then it was stunning to me, man. Because what I want you to know, Quick, is by the time I met you, man,
Mm,
you had already stepped into your leadership role. But when I met
mm,
you as a junior, bro, you were like, what I'm saying, one of the top guys at the school, but you carried yourself with such coolness. So to hear that you had gotten in trouble as a freshman, I was actually shocked by that. So I want you to tell that story.
oh man. Yeah, I went through a period of time my freshman year. I had a family member that went to prison, and he was somebody I looked up to. And I kind of say that was like the triggering moment that really set me off. I went on a rampage, basically. From 14 to 15, I was constantly being arrested. I was in and out of juvenile detention. I missed, I think, half of the school year that I was allowed to be there. I missed like 34 days or something like that.
Mm.
I had like a point 0.6 GPA. I just wasn't interested. I was more interested and at that time, as a 15-year-old, my goal, as sick as it is, was to try to get to prison with the person that I looked up to.
Wow.
And obviously, it wasn't achievable, but my mindset was I just didn't care anymore. And a part of it was being in school and like how they put up with me long enough. And then it hit a point where they pretty much couldn't do it anymore, and they expelled me from school. So that was kind of rough. I went to an adult school. The alternative school, Excel, at the time wouldn't accept me because they just felt I was too much of a threat. I didn't have a lot of violent stuff going on, but I had enough mischief that it's just something they didn't want to deal with. So I had to go to Webster at the time. It was an adult school, trying to work on my GED. thankfully, the following year, the Lake Cal let me back in. Um, and from that point on, I mean, like you said, I just kind of flipped the script on them, and I got straight A's. I think I got one B. By the time I graduated, from the time they let me back in, um, finished with like a 3.8, and basically just did what I needed to do. Was a part of student government and all that kind of stuff. So it was a rough time in my life, but it was definitely a part of my story and a part of who I am today.
I love that, man. I love how you are willing to admit that you had a goal of trying to, be with that guy. But what's the thing that sent you back the other way, right? I mean, you didn't it was just going to that other school. Once you get the bottom, you don't know where else to go up but up. But is there someone you can point to say, no, they kind of motivated me to get back on the right track?
I was basically begging for attention. I really wanted somebody to give me some real expectations and some real borders. At the time, my mom raised six of us alone, so she was doing what she could do. But when you have challenges the way that the ones that we gave her, and other challenges on top of that in life, there's only so much you can expect. And what really changed things for me was my family were the ones that called the cops on me the final time that I got
Oh
arrested.
wow.
And obviously at the time I was hurt, I was kind of confused, but really at the moment, looking back, that's really the piece that forced me to change. It was like, somebody was seeing me, that here's the attention that I really was looking for. I thought it was the attention of these people that I was doing the stuff with, and I was trying to be cool and all that, but really I was seeking the attention of discipline and some guidance. And when that happened, I finally felt like I got it.
That's awesome, man.
Mm.
So how much of that do you credit to the great game of football? And I want you to partner that into going into when did you start to realize that you were darn good at that game?
Uh, I was kind of odd. I mean, I always felt like I was a good athlete. I always felt like that I could. I was physical. I was always physical, so I always had that on my side. I could figure things out. Man, it was for me. I don't know. It was just kind of a year by year situation. I got recruited by a lot of people, and obviously that was a sign that I was doing pretty good. And it just kind of, I don't know if I completely believed in myself. Not really until like my junior year or sophomore year in college down in South Florida. There was a coach that told me, I feel like you're as good as Derek Brooks and some of these other people that he coached at Florida State. And I was like, wow, like you really feel that way about me. He's like, I definitely think you could play in the NFL. And I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. But prior to that, I think it was kind of like constantly trying to prove to myself that I deserved to be where I was.
Man, that's awesome, man. I think a lot of
Mm.
young people can relate to that. I uh, have the pleasure of being an AD at a university. We have football there, and a lot of the guys that we work with, they come in and football is all that they think of. It's the only thing. It's the only identity that they have. What would you say? What would you say to those guys, man? Is that a healthy way of going about it? Is that how you went about it as well?
That's definitely how I went about it, and it's not the right way to go about it. I don't think. I think the guys that I experienced that really were great at what they did, they understood that football was just something that they did. The other parts of life that you're able to focus on as a result of like putting football where it needs to be, as far as a priority and something that you work hard on, but just a part of your life instead of being your entire life. I think it allows you to grow in so many other ways, and in a lot of ways, it makes you a better athlete. I think.
Mm.
Because you can take a break, mentally, emotionally. You have other things that can grab your attention, and then when it's time to lock in on football, then it's a little bit easier, um, and you understand everything's put in perspective. So I think it's a healthier way to go about it.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So I remember you again in high school. So you're that team, both junior year and senior year. I remember Trevor had gotten drafted the year prior. Trevor Price got
Mhm.
drafted to the Broncos. So when you're playing at like how you're telling us now that you didn't know then that you were going to be a Division One or even a pro at that point.
I thought I'd be a Division One, but like I didn't grow up around that. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have my brothers and sisters. They were all athletes, and my brother closest to me went to a smaller school in Iowa. Um, so I mean, when I was recruited, I knew I was going to be Division One. You know, I had a chance to visit with Florida, Miami, Notre Dame, Georgia, and then Georgia Tech was on my top 5 list. And obviously, I knew that was pretty special. And I knew you had to be good to do that. You know, so I definitely had an understanding that I was, you know, I was big and I was fast, so I had the ability to do it. But it was just something, you know. I think I always kind of thought like coming from behind was my way of approaching things. You know, it always kind of kept me hungry. I always felt like I needed to earn whatever I got, and that was just always my approach.
It's awesome, man. So you can start getting comparisons with Derek Brooks, which is my favorite linebacker of all time. You know,
Right.
Buccaneers fan. And so now, so let's get our eyes set on the NFL. So you're at University of South Florida. That's going well. This coach instills some belief in you. When did the NFL start to become a reality to you? And then talk us through that draft process.
Oh man, that was again. I thought it benefited me to kind of feel like that I'm always coming from behind. At the time, you know, I was waiting for an invite to the Senior Bowl. I didn't get an invite to the Senior Bowl, which wasn't a big concern of mine. But I knew if I was able to play in that game, that I would get some attention. I was invited to the Hula Bowl, and I was invited to the Senior Bowl here in Orlando, Florida. I decided not to play in the Senior Bowl or the not the Senior Bowl. I forgot what it was called. I think it was like U.S. versus everybody else, something like that. And so I decided to play in the Hula Bowl, and the next piece that I needed was the combine. So I got the invite for the combine, and I did really well. I ran fast and jumped high, and I was big. So you know, I did really well there in Kansas City. They said they were really interested, so I got on people's radar at the combine, and then from there, they were watching my film because at the time South Florida was still a young team, and they didn't really get a lot of attention, even though we did have three fourth round draft picks. I think I forgot what year, but the year prior to me getting drafted, or 2 years prior to me getting drafted. So um, after that, I caught the attention. I started talking to Kansas City. I was talking to Green Bay, and I was projected to go 5th to 7th round to free agent, and somehow I jumped up to the 2nd round, and it became a reality. But that thing is really, you don't really know how that's going to play out unless you're, you know, one of those top 1st round guys. And sometimes, you know, even for them, it's a mystery. But it just kind of it panned out. You know, they say they were going to take me. I didn't believe them, and then they took me. So
I heard you tell a story that you weren't even like you weren't at the draft and you weren't planted at home like waiting. You
no,
were like in a drive-through or something.
yeah. I had our oldest son Levi was born on Wednesday. I was meeting with the Chiefs on Tuesday night at Outback in Tampa. My wife was in the hospital where she was being induced on Wednesday morning. So Wednesday afternoon, we had our son, brought him home Friday, took him to the doctor on Saturday for a checkup, and then Saturday afternoon, I got drafted. My vision was to be sitting on the couch, holding him, watching the draft, had family and friends at the house. I was going to see my highlights, and that's what it was going to be. But you know, my wife was exhausted. You know, for some reason, just having a baby, I guess, kind of makes you
Yeah.
tired. And then the baby was busy, and people were at the house, and I wanted some food, so we went grabbed some food. I was in the Wendy's drive-through, and I got the call from the Chiefs, and they were like, "We're going to draft you." I didn't know the people on the phone. I knew Dick Vermeil. I knew that name, but I didn't know the GM. I didn't know the D coordinator, and that was it. They drafted me.
So are you because I mean I know you're a humble guy. You
Uh,
said the word somehow, right?
yeah,
Somehow you projected 5th and 7th, you get taken 2nd. But come on, man, I got a lot of football players that's going to be listening to this,
yeah.
just wanting to hear what's that somehow. Fill that in. How does someone defy those projections and get drafted higher than they're supposed to?
Man, you got to want it. You got to really, really want it. You know, my senior year, I was committed. I had a really good year my sophomore year. I had a good year my junior year. By the time I left South Florida, I was a leading tackler. But my senior year, I really committed to watching film. I would go in with the coaches. I would watch practice film until 10 at night. I would, work out extra. I would do all the things that I needed to do prior to the combine. I went and trained, and it was a part of, pretty popular thing that they do, and it's not an uncommon thing. But I trained extremely hard. I ate extremely clean. This was all, time to sacrifice while my wife was pregnant, getting ready to have our child. I'm in Atlanta. I'm in South Florida, just training and doing whatever I needed to do to prepare myself for the combine, and then be ready. And then by the time I stepped into the role, they wanted me to play right away. So yeah, it took a lot. It took a lot of work. And somehow it's just kind of like you just don't know. It's up to the teams. All you can do is put your best foot forward and hope for the best situation. And I felt like, and I still approach things this way, is that if I'm prepared and I do everything that I need to do, and I get denied, then it just that's just how it worked out. But if I do what I need to do, I should have a chance. So as far as being drafted, I did everything I needed to do.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned film. I don't care which sport it is. That is one of those things that you can really, it's a differentiator, right? You can tell who's really, really committed when they're watching it with a remote in their hand, rewind and trying to figure out the why of things. Because
Yeah,
everybody wants to be successful on game day, but what are you doing before game day? That really sets us apart.
no
Um,
doubt.
so I'm not gonna do it now, but we're not getting out of here without talking family, man. Because I think it's one of
Mm.
the coolest things in the world that you're still married to your high school sweetheart, and you got. But we're not gonna do that right now. Right
Oh yeah,
now,
yeah.
I want to get to the part that I know a lot of people want to talk about. Right. So this is the promised land for
Mm.
any athlete, right? You're a professional athlete. You did it. Did that feel like a sense of arrival for you, Kawika, or was that even like, nah, it's just starting?
Mm.
Was there a surreal moment to that? Talk to us about this scary idea of getting millions of dollars as a young man.
Mm.
Give us some education on that stuff.
Yeah, man. I mean, it happens fast. The first thing I would say about that whole situation is really try to slow things down and take it. Really try to take it day by day, because it really is fast life. The time I got drafted, we moved to Kansas, and like I think 2 weeks later, thankfully I was married, so I didn't have the same type of pressures as a single guy. But some of the single guys, they got to really manage their time well, because the NFL is demanding. And once you get there, it's not about, it's about everybody's good. Everybody there deserves to be
Mhm.
there. Everybody there is talented. So if you think you're just arrived, or that you finally made it and everything's cool, it's not cool. Like, it is cool. It's a cool job. It's a cool situation. It can give you a lot of great things, but it won't come easy. So for me, again, I took the attitude that I was coming from behind, that I had to earn everything that I was given. So it didn't hit me right away. I kind of, again, having a newborn child and moving to Kansas, everything just kind of was crazy. The first real moment where that I knew I was in the NFL was I was started. It was my first start. It was a Monday Night Football game against the Raiders, and I grew up a Notre Dame fan, and Tim Brown caught the ball, and I was chasing Tim Brown, and literally in my head, I was like, "Man, that's Tim Brown." I think I might have said it. I think I might have said it out loud, and so that was the moment where it really smacked me. I was like, "Wow, like this is really really happening." I grew up like I said, I grew up a Raider fan. Look at these guys in the black and gray. Like, and this is Tim Brown. Like, I'm literally chasing this guy. So that was the moment. And then from there, just kind of, man, for me, my goal was always to stay out of the front office. Like, I didn't want anything to
Mm.
do with that side of things, because because I could only control what I could control. So you talk about watching film, you talk about making sure I practice, you talk like the off season. If I didn't have a great off season to make sure I was in the best shape that I could be in, then the chances of me getting injured the next season were very high. So I always worked extremely hard on the off seasons, and I always made sure my thing was always like I always think about it like an artist. Like, in order to get this beautiful picture, you got to have each little stroke. And each little stroke for me was showing up in the morning, working out, watching film, doing all the things I needed to do. So at the end of the day, I could have my piece of art. And, hopefully they would like it. They like what I was presenting to them, and the business side would take care of itself.
Yeah, that's what's up. There's a pretty cool book. You should probably heard of it. Myron Rolle from Florida
Mm,
State. This
mm,
guy, he wanted to be the first NFL player and brain surgeon, and he
yeah,
wrote the book, the 2% Way, and that's what he talks about. He just, one little bit at a time, take care of what he can take care of. That's one way to get better. So I love that, man. So okay, so you're NFL. So all of us, right? So we all want to play college. You did that. Then once you make it to college, we all want to get drafted. You did that. Now, once you get drafted, what does everybody want? They want to play in a Super Bowl and they want to win a
yeah,
Super Bowl.
mm,
And you did that.
yeah,
And in that Super Bowl, you sacked what I don't think anyone can argue is the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. So talk
no
to us
doubt.
about that, man. What's it feel like to win a Super Bowl championship?
It was amazing, man. My whole life, that's all I just won a championship. At Lake Howell, I thought we were good enough. We went to the playoffs often, besides my senior year. And then, South Florida, I knew we didn't really have a chance. We were independent. But, once you get to the league and you're playing with these guys, Tony Gonzalez and this Will Shields and this Willie Rofe and these Hall of
Mhm.
Famers, who are just excellent players on the field, and have done really well financially in their career. They've been playing a really long time, and all they want is the Super Bowl. Then you got Michael Strahan, and so you realize the level and how hard it is, because just to win a game in the NFL is extremely hard. It's such a tight. You can't make a lot of mistakes. So going to the Super Bowl, the first two games that year, I think we gave up like 88 points to the Dallas Cowboys and I think the Green Bay Packers. It was not looking good, or not the Packers. I think the Vikings maybe. So it wasn't looking good. Our defense looked terrible. Our offense needed us to show up, and then from there we just started turning things around. We couldn't win at home. I think at the end of the year we ended up winning 11 games on the road, 11 straight games on the road. So thankfully we could win on the road, especially being a wild card. So we had great leadership, man. Antonio Pierce on the defensive side with Michael Strahan. Um, on the offensive side, there was more like Plexico Burrs was more the leader, and Amani Toomer, some of those guys. So we just kept gaining momentum, and then we played the Patriots at the end of the year, and they beat us. I got hurt. I sprained my MCL, but we didn't really we knew we learned some things from them. But if we really wanted to try to see them again, because we felt like they would be in the Super Bowl, they were beating everybody pretty easily.
Mhm.
That we would eventually see them again. So we just had to chip our way. We went to Tampa Bay, we beat them. We went to Dallas, we beat them. Went to Green Bay, we beat them, and then it was the undefeated Patriots, and it was scary. It was
Yeah.
Yeah, it was scary. They had Randy Moss. They had all these guys. They were scoring 50-something points in games, and we knew we had our hands full. They knew their defense was really good. Belichick was going to come up with a good plan, and the number one thing we had to do was hit Tom Brady. So we did. We hit him, I think, 28 times, and it came all the way down to the wire. They were trying to hit, Eli escaping tackles and throwing it to David Tyree and all the things that
Mhm.
people have seen. Those are very unlikely things that were going to happen. Like
Mhm.
Eli doesn't do that. He doesn't get away from tackles. Like he just doesn't throw on the run.
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
uh, so and they had Randy Moss at the end of the game, and they kept trying to hit him, and it went down to the last minute. And once it finally happened, it was a dream come true, man. It was an amazing feeling, and I did it with a group of guys that we still keep in touch, and a group of guys that I really care about a lot, and I think that's what it takes to accountability. We definitely had accountability for one another, and and that was it, man. It was an awesome experience.
That's awesome. So many follow-ups to that, man. The first one that came to my mind is when you mentioned the leaders, right? You said Plaxico, you said Admani Toomer. You didn't mention the quarterback. Now, most people
Mm,
assume in football, period, not just pro football, the quarterback is the leader. But I always say leadership has nothing to do with title.
yeah,
Like leadership is the
yeah.
people that people follow. So talk to
Mm,
us about that. I'm not gonna ask you to say anything bad about anybody that you play with. I'm just
mm,
saying, like, talk to
yeah.
us about to these young people about how can they assume a position of leadership regardless of their position.
Yeah, I mean, if you just do the right things, right, people notice it, and I think that's what Amani represent. Amani was just he was a true pro. He was always in there early. He was always leaving late. He was always watching film, taking care of his body. Plexico was a guy that he didn't even practice. He practiced at the beginning of the year, and then he was hurt all year long, so he didn't practice. He didn't practice all year long, but we saw him. We saw him in the training room. We saw him working out. We saw him doing the things he needed to do, and then he just showed up and played games, and then he just produced. So it was like it's probably one of the craziest things that I've seen. But I mean, if I really think about the offensive line, was really probably our deepest leadership on
Mhm.
the offensive side of the ball, and those guys just the way that they had high expectations for one another, and they held each other accountable, and they did it with the purpose of being successful. Um, so I think if you have those pieces in place, it doesn't matter where you are on the field. I mean, I was there 1 year and I made an impact, and I think I would be looked at as one of the leaders on the defense. I think it's just how you show up, and if you can do that consistently.
Yeah, for sure. So our sports are different, right? In my game, everyone has to play offense and defense. In your game, you guys,
Mm,
change places on the field. So
mm,
talk to me about that dynamic. Like educate the non-football people on like that dynamic because you see like on Hard Knocks or you see in like different training camps, sometimes y'all go at it, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
as a basketball coach, I'm like, bro, if anyone starts throwing fists in my practice, I'm mad. Like we should never
Mm.
be that. We family. But what's that dynamic like in football between the offense and the defense?
I mean, it's highly competitive. Obviously they want to score points, and we don't want to let them score any points. It's funny. Like I'm watching. I like cycling, so I'm watching the Tour de France, and there's these guys trying to get these points for climbing the mountains, and these other guys are just letting them do it. And I'm like, that in a football mentality, it doesn't matter if you're not trying to get that award or not. Like you're not letting anybody get anything.
Mhm, mhm,
And that's the best way to explain it is, it's just a high level of competition, and everybody's got to be on the same page. And you got 11 guys on each side of the ball, and we all have a responsibility. We all have something to do. And the other side of the ball, for me on defense, the offense, those 11 guys are trying to find a way to beat us. So we all have to work together, and we all have to be, on top of our game, and we have to be smart. Everybody at that level is physical. Everybody's athletic. Everybody's talented. So it's really a mental game. Like, how can I be prepared to not let these guys score points? And
mhm,
sometimes it gets heated. It's a physical game.
mhm.
There's a lot of trash talking. There's a lot of physical hitting. There's a lot of things that happen in football that don't happen in other sports. Well, hockey, and you can see that they have the
Mhm.
same
They be
experiences.
scrapping.
So yeah, I
Right.
think it's just the mentality of it. Don't let anybody get anything.
But it's all love after the games.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny, when it's on the field, because it's like this. I mean, we still have boundaries, and there's some
Mhm,
guys that cross boundaries and do some real dirty stuff, but for the most part, like, we know the deal. Like, right on the field, I might play against my best friend, but when the game is done, we'll be friends again. But at this point,
mhm,
like if you catch the ball, I'm gonna hit you. Like, I got to do
mhm.
my job, and not
Right.
just about my job, but that's the game, and I'm gonna hit you. So,
Right.
but yeah, it's all love.
So you mentioned earlier, you said that one of your goals was to stay out of the front office, right?
Mhm.
But everybody wants a bag, Kawika. Like,
Yeah.
like that's what all the kids talk about now. You got to get your bag,
Mhm.
right? And then if you watch any talk show, that's what they're talking about. I remember like watching Lamar Jackson. People talking about him not having an agent. So
Mhm.
just put us a little, give my people a little bit of insight of what happens behind the scenes. How do you get represented so that you can take care of your family? still play the game you love, but also make sure that they're not devaluing you in that game?
You have to have great representation. Once you're at that stage and at that level, making that kind of money, you have to have somebody who's going to watch your back. If you want to be out there and you want to be in commercials, you need a marketing team. You need a team for every aspect of your. You got to treat yourself like a business, basically. And if you do that, then you surround yourself with the right people. And sometimes that can be challenging because there's a lot of people out there that want a piece of the pie, and you're making a lot of money. So you got to really be careful about who you choose. I always think it's best to get references and try to do an evaluation period. Like I had, I interviewed a number of agents, and then we got narrowed it down to three, and then I picked the one I wanted to be with, based off of certain things that me, my family, my wife talked about, and it was the process. So yeah, you gotta have the people who can represent you, and then on your side, you play ball. Like I played football. Football was my business. That's how I made money. The way that I can make money is take care of my body. If I'm not available, then I'm not really worth anything. So I need to take care of my body. I need to do the things I need to do so I can perform on the field. And then when it comes time, because there's either at the end of your contract or there comes a time when you deserve to go back to the table and renegotiate your contract, then there's certain people who can handle that. So it's important to make sure you have the right people, make sure you have an agent that can go in there and represent you.
Those of us on the outside who've never had a chance to be pros, I hear it all the time. People assume that the majority of the stories are young people who get money too soon and blow it. In your experience, would you say that that's true, or would you say it's actually no? There's some that do that, but for the most part, it is life-changing money. That if you do it right, you get it, you take care of yourself, and then you're good.
Absolutely. There's two ways. There's both. So I think the life expectancy in the NFL is 3 years and 2 games. That's what it used to be. It takes time to learn. Some people, and I would say that the minority of them, they learn quickly. But for the other people, majority of us, and I was a part of that, it took me a couple years to learn how to manage it. Not necessarily, so, you get a bonus. If you're lucky enough to get a bonus, which I was drafted in the second round, and then I was able to put that away. But you're making, I think I was making like, I don't know, like let's just say 275 my freshman year, my rookie year. Even if it was 300,000, as a 23-year-old, you're around these guys. They drive Lamborghinis. They wear these fancy clothes. These at the time these Mitchell and Ness jerseys, and all this stuff is a culture. So like it's really hard not to live in that culture. And plus, you're 23 years old. You got all this money. You want to buy stuff. So it's like, so I think it's a natural challenge, man. But I think it's a learning curve. I think it takes time. I think if you have enough time, then you're lucky. But a lot of guys aren't lucky enough. So maybe they do get the money and they waste it, and they spend it pretty fast, or they don't have enough to last them throughout the year. So it's really, and you got to think of the demographic as well. A lot of guys that came in with, I didn't have money growing up. A lot of these guys didn't have money. They don't have people around them that can really teach them how to do it the right way. So again, it's important to try to surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so huge. All right. So okay, so we went through the NFL. So now let's talk about that part where okay, the career starting to come in. You said the average is 3 years, two plays. You made it what, 6, 7?
8,
You played 8 years in the league.
years. Yeah. Mm.
Okay, so now your time is coming to an end. What is that transition like once pro football is behind you?
Wow. Well, we started this conversation. You asked me about one of the things was about football being your life or football being something that you do. I think that's when it really comes into play, is understanding that it has to only be a part of your life. Because if you retire, which when I retired, football was kind of my identity at the time. It really was who I was. So when I lost football, I lost a piece of myself, and the transition was really tough. I think naturally, I think it's gonna be hard. I think regardless of how you place football in your life, if it's just a part of your life or if it's your identity, I think regardless is gonna be challenging. You lose a whole social aspect of it. You lose a whole routine of it. You lose all, for 23 years, somebody did my life for me. They had my season planned out, my off season planned out, they had my schedule planned out. So it's a big adjustment. You got to kind of relearn those things if you haven't already learned them. And then again, it's important to have good people around you. I think at all times you want to lean on that support, and you don't want to do it alone. And I think that transition, as far as on the mental side of things, it's important to try to prepare for that, and try to make sure you have the right support around you.
Yeah. I think, again, I wasn't a pro Kawika, but I think I could tell you, I think even to this day, bro, like to
Mm,
this day, I still struggle to have a really strong identity that's outside of athletics, that's outside of
yeah.
being a ball player. It's
Mm,
just so much a part of my blood.
mm,
I just got finished doing a training before we came to talk, and
mm.
just being on that court teaching a kid how to play still felt like home to me. It's an identity for me.
Yeah.
So I'm not shy about telling people that, because I believe, and this is going to be a good segue into talking about family life.
Mm,
I believe all of this ends in family life,
mm.
and so I want coaches and parents and athletes to have that in mind as they're doing it. Not to say there's anything wrong with committing and giving your whole heart and soul to it. In fact, you have to do that,
Yeah.
but you can't do it not understanding that even if you're Tom Brady, LeBron James, Kawika
Mm,
Mitchell, no matter what, it ends in family life.
yeah. Yeah.
Right now, you were one of the lucky ones in that you've had family life throughout. So I want you to talk about that a little bit. And now,
Mm.
I'm just telling you, man, I just think it's cool. I mean, because I was with Lana, and I know, and her and I are still friends, and it's cool. But man,
Yeah.
that is hard, bro. To be with somebody from 16 all the way to now, man. You
Yeah.
got to tell
Yeah.
these people how special that relationship is.
Oh man. Yeah. So I've been with my wife since we started. It was like May 21st, before freshman year. Went to
Wow.
went to Disney, and we somehow ended up holding hands, and then we from there we started talking. And obviously we were young kids. We were 14 at the time, and going to 15. 5 months later, I turned 15. She turned 15 in November, and then man, we just started dating. And for whatever reason, not for whatever reason, I mean, we really became close. At the time, we really looked out for each other as we were growing up. And then it was there was definitely some challenging times as we continued to grow up and go to college. And she went to college separate from me, and then I went to Georgia out of high school, and then we transferred and ended up at South Florida together. And it's been a growing process for sure. But man, having somebody who is truly my best friend, and we're so linked. I mean, at this point, we've been married 20 years now. I'm pretty sure 20. But
You just look
so
over your
yeah,
shoulder.
yeah, we've been married 20 years now. And there's so many times we'll have conversations, and I'll say something, and she is already thinking what I was saying, and I was already thinking what she was about to say. And so yeah, man, to go through life with somebody like that you can count on, man, is, I think, extremely rare. It was a road that that wasn't easy. I think there's just challenges in any relationship, but to be together that long comes with a lot of history, a lot of challenges. But where we are today is it's amazing. So
Yeah.
we have three beautiful kids. I got a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And
Oh wow.
yeah, and I definitely wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. So it's been amazing.
That's awesome. So with that timeline, I shorted you guys 2 years. That means she
Yeah,
was with you before your, you know, renegade phase or whatever you want to call
yeah,
it, your rebel phase.
yeah,
So she stuck with you through that.
yeah,
Man, that's awesome. That means she deserved all the good time, all the good Kawika. She deserves that.
yeah. And here's a funny story is, and I don't think I've really told many people this, but I was in JDC at the time, and she was like, "If you get in trouble again, like, we're done." So I like wrote her a love letter, and I put the address of Hawaii. I said I was in Hawaii visiting family, and the Seminole County Corrections puts a stamp on the letter.
Got him.
Yeah, she's like, "Your how's Hawaii going?" I'm like, "It's beautiful." She's like, it tells me about the letter, and I'm like, "Oh." I was like, I'm sorry, babe, but at the time we were we were young, so it's like there's a commitment, but it's still it's still a young love, or
Yeah.
however you want to take it. So it was a little bit more flexible back then.
Nah, man, it's genuine, man. And
Yeah.
and it's really cool for me. It's 20 something years later, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. For all of you guys that are in high school, if you're listening to this, Kawika and Billy were the homecoming king and queen for our senior
Mm.
year. And I mean, by far the most popular couple. And we all felt, I mean, we was in high school, but we all felt it even then as teenagers. Like we looked up to you guys. Like, man,
Yeah.
we were all hoping to find something like that. But even then, we probably leave high school thinking, yeah, but when he goes off to college,
Yeah.
that's not gonna last. Okay,
Yeah.
when he go to the NFL, it's not gonna
Yeah.
last. And then I just
Yeah.
been following him, like, no, they still together. They got a beautiful family, man. So
Yeah.
I just think that's
Yeah.
so cool, bro.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um, so let's go into the dad mode, man.
All right.
And then we're gonna go dad mode, then we'll go coaching mode,
All right.
and we'll end it that way. But so now putting on your dad hat, man, you're a pro,
Yeah.
you love the game. I know for a fact Levi's born when you're drafted. You're
Mhm.
thinking, I'm going to pour this into him. Talk to me about Levi. Talk to me about raising a son as a
Mhm.
pro and trying not to be that dad that enforces something on him, lets him grow up and be his own man.
Yeah, I mean, I really try to take it that direction. I really try to let him be who he was, who he is. He ended up playing football. When he was young, he put full pads on every day, and he played all four quarters: offense, defense, special teams, injuries. He did an interview at the end. I mean, he probably did that till I don't know, like 10 years old, maybe. We would have to throw him the football, and it was a big deal. So he grew up loving football, and the sad story is when the whole concussion thing came out, we decided that football was it was tough. I wanted him to carry on. I wanted him to do what I did, and I had to be smart about it. And I decided to have him wait till high school. And in my opinion, today I think it's good to play, at least seventh, eighth grade, and kind of get a feel for the game, see if you like it. And so anyway, he ended up playing. He's playing at South Florida. He plays for the same school that I went to, and but he was recruited to play baseball, and he was going to play baseball. He was looking at schools, and then he said, "I want to play football." And of course, I was proud, and for him to go to South Florida, it definitely made me happy. And he's living the life. I mean, he just moved into the same apartment complex that me and Billy lived in. So
That's awesome.
20 years, yeah, which is crazy, but yeah, you try to let them be who they want to be, and it's an interesting process.
So you're gonna dispel one of my room. I guess I have a faulty point of view, right? Because I
Mm,
say that I came my childhood was tough, Kuika. By the time you met me,
mm,
I was already moved out of my house, man. Like
mm,
my childhood was tough, but that's what drove me, right? Even
mm.
when you tell your story, like raised by a single parent, what I'm saying, like that's what
Right.
drove you. So I always
Mm,
say that now when we become successful and we do things, it's hard to drive our kids.
mm.
So just like help me understand, how did you get your kid driven when you I'm sure he lived a very comfortable life unlike you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He still lives a very comfortable life. It's funny, because I used to think I'm like, well, I face all this adversity, and I know that's why I am who I am today. So I'm like, but I can't create adversity for my son, and I think naturally they experience their own adversity anyway. And I,
Mm.
I think I think really trying to find moments of honesty throughout those situations is really the best way to go, man. And to really, I think moms are always going to be there. At least my wife, she's always going to be there to do the mom thing and take care of them, and as much as you can. I mean, especially at this age, it's about trying to pull back and trying to let him experience life on. He wants to be an adult, so you got to let him be an adult. But growing up, those times of adversity, they show up no matter how much money you have, no matter what situation you're in. They're going to be at a different level than the one I experienced. Thankfully, he doesn't experience the same thing I did, but I'm sure he did because I'm who I am, and I came from where I came from, so some of that carried over. So I think there's always these challenges, that we can pick out and we can use as teaching situations.
Yeah. And what about your daughter, the younger one? They into
Mhm.
sports too?
My daughter ran track. She did gym. She did gymnastics for a long time up till training for level 10. And once that ended, I kind of compare that to football. It's just a hard transition. It's they were 25 hours a week, and then she finally found track in college and high school and did really well. She could go on to college, but I don't think that's really what she wants to do. She's interested in some other things. So the little one, he if he's the little firecracker, man. He's a little bit different. He's definitely spoiled. He's got four parents, so having two older siblings and me and my wife, he's
Hmm.
kind of like a single child of four parents, and
Hmm.
so it'll be interesting. He's played baseball so far and soccer, and so we'll see. He can run though, like he'll run a mile and just be okay. He's been doing that since he was like 3, so
Sure.
yeah, he just has got energy. So we'll see. We'll see how it works out.
So one of the things I pride myself on when I decided to come to this space and do this is I'm not trying to create like another tabloid show or gossip or like, that's not what this is about. I'm really just trying to put content out that helps people. But with that said, you did say something that is a little bit, it's pretty powerful that you said it. And I just want to make sure I give you a chance to hammer it home. So
Mhm.
you're a former pro and you say what about concussions in football?
um, I think the lawsuit was really on point. I think there's a lot of things that were unknown that were known but weren't shared to the people who were playing the game. So I think there was responsibility for sure with the NFL and the owners, and I think they all knew, and I think they withheld that information. I don't know that I would choose a different path. I kind of feel like I was born to do what I've done. I do think there's a smarter way of doing it. I do think that they are taking better care of guys. I think that there's, with Tua last year and that whole situation, I still think they got room to grow as far as people taking responsibility and doing what's right. But if you put it on the players' hands, they're never going to. There's not very many players who are going to do what the right thing is. They're not going to walk out
Mhm.
of the game and take themselves out. So they got to have accountability, and I think kids can. I think the game is okay to play. I think as long as the NFL represents that it's really truly about the player safety, I think it trickles down, and I think other people in high school and different levels will follow suit and make sure they're doing it the right way too.
Amen. That's awesome. As a college AD, for sure, we pride ourselves on safety. We love that game. It's the most exciting game on our campus for sure,
Yeah.
but it requires the most amount of attention as far as
Mhm.
keeping everybody safe. There's an ambulance on site at every game,
Right.
and I think we've all learned from past mistakes.
Mhm.
So that's a great, perfect segue into the reason why I reached out to you. I was just scrolling Facebook and I saw you made an announcement, man. So first of
Mhm.
all, congratulations. But like, go into that a little bit. What exactly is your role back home at Lake Howell? And let's talk coaching. What's going to be your approach to that role?
I coached at Orangewood 2 years, and I coached at Winter Park 1 year. And
Okay.
I did a podcast with Lake Howell, and they were like, "Come on back home." And at the time, it wasn't even a thought. I interviewed a couple years ago to be the defense coordinator, and I decided that I just wasn't. I was going to go coach at Orangewood and whatever. But I knew the AD, and I knew a couple of people that were still there that I knew, and I went home and I kind of just thought about it a little bit, and I asked. I said, I really want to be around the students, so we're trying to figure out a way where I can be on campus and I can be involved, maybe on a teaching situation or whatever, which is something I never I never thought I would do, but that's kind of how life works out. It just sends you down these paths sometimes. But so yeah, I'll be at Lake Howell, which is super cool. To be back home and try to help out the program. They've been struggling since basically my senior year. But I'll be right now just working with the linebackers, which is great. It's a good young group of kids across the board. So hopefully, what I think is awesome about high school football is these kids come out there and they work extremely hard, and
Mhm.
they're committed. And I think naturally they're distracted. They got all kind of stuff going on in life, but when they're on the field, they need good direction. They come there to work. So that's my goal, is really just to provide some mentorship with them, as well as some good direction and some great coaching.
uh, Talk to any player that's transitioning to coaching. What's the difference between playing the game at the high level and coaching?
Oh man, for me, it's I can see the game a certain way, but how do I get them to see the game that I see? And again, for me, it's always about the details. So how can I get them to focus on the small things and really and I think there's a way of carrying themselves as well. Attitude is a big thing. Like with my kids growing up, like we didn't care if they didn't do well, it wasn't a big deal. But if their attitude it sucked, then it was an issue. If they're throwing tantrums and all that kind of stuff, that was something we talked about. So I think just for me, I think it's more about learning more than anything. Like when these kids are making these mistakes and they get all emotional about it, I always try to bring it back to, listen, I understand you're upset about it, but like you're taken away from the moment. What happened in the situation? Did you not wrap up? Did you not use two hands? What did you do so you can learn from it? And then next time maybe you can get it better. So just trying to focus on the little things, I think is my approach.
I love it. All right, man. Last question. I appreciate you spending this time with me, man. One thing I always try to end on is one of the things I'm on a mission to do, Kawika, is I want to normalize insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to sweat it. I want people to realize that great people, normal people, everybody at some point in their day feels a little insecure. So the
Yeah.
way I ask this is, what's your AGB? What's the
Mm-hmm.
thing what's the next thing for Kawika that you've got that voice in your head that sometimes is insecure about, but is really going to go after it with everything you got? What's next for you?
Oh man, wow. Next for me is really this venture into Lake Howell. One thing that I've really started to own is this want and desire to really mentor kids. When I really looked at my time at Lake Howell and all the trouble I got in, and the people who really, when I look at the people I still respect in life and I really look up to the most, I like a lot of business people. I think they're really, they're doing great things. They're influencing other people. But when I really look at it, it was, the teachers that carried me through those situations back then. And that's really why I chose the path that I'm on now, and decided to go back to Lake Howell, was to try to offer some of the same guidance that I received. Either if I'm on school, then cool. If not, then it's going to be on the field. If not, that's something I want to work towards, is creating a mentoring, coaching program where I can work with other people and try to help them out.
That's exactly what's up, man. And that's exactly what we're doing here. And let me just say right on air, all you have to do is say the word. If you want to get involved, I'd love to have you, man. We're
Yeah.
trying to build coaches all around the country that know exactly what you said, that it's all about instilling belief in other people, giving back, and mentoring. So we're going to do it virtually like you and I are talking now. So if you want to be a part of it, just say the word. I'd love to have you. But man, I can't thank you enough for your time, bro. I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you having me, man. It was awesome. It was great to see you
Yeah.
again.